Check, check. How about now? Can you hear me now? So I am trying a different microphone today. I've been having a complicated relationship with my streaming setup, at least recently, because I don't really want to focus on this space because it's not permanent. This is like a kind of a temporary solution, and so I don't want to put a bunch of time into like fine tuning it. And so a bunch of things that are kind of on my nerves, like this is way too hot and it needs diffusion, but I don't really want to put I don't want to do the work, you know? Because the current status of everything is that I'm in the process of, knock on wood, I'm in the process of buying a building. And so that is, oh buddy, you want to talk about a whole bunch of unknown unknowns, like what an adventure that is. I'm basically, so where I'm at is we have been working on the Web Dev Challenge, and the Web Dev Challenge set has grown to be, it like encompasses the whole building that we're in. We've got about 2,500 square feet. I would say probably 2,300 of it are just completely dominated by the Web Dev Challenge set. It's we can't really put anything else in here, which is great. That's what we got the building for. But things are good problems, but things are real busy now. So we have other productions. We've got a new one we're working on called the Greenfield Games, which I'm very excited about. We've got a new one that's kind of like a spin-off of Web Dev Challenge that we're working on. We have all sorts of fun stuff. And the nice thing about that is that it means we need more space, and we have bigger sets. We're able to do bigger and bigger productions. It's very exciting. The downside is that we don't have the ability to accommodate that space in the building that we're in now. Also, we're renting, and so that comes with its own set of complications. And there's just a lot. We don't. There's a lot to be done. A lot of things that we're learning, and all of that is basically coming down to we need more space. And so I started looking around at what it would mean to lease space. The event schedule got messed up. God, okay, let me go fix it. The fact that this thing doesn't know how to do, it says 9:30. Oh, and then all the rest of them are scheduled at 10:30. Silly. They're at 9:30. End time 12. Can I not edit all of these at once? Oh, come on, don't make me do that. Oh, that's a pain. How does that even work? Can you edit event, edit all events in this series? That's what I want. Yep. There. Starts at 9:30, ends at noon. Weekly on Tuesday. There we go. Save event, and now save event. Correct. Cannot schedule events in the past. What? I don't want to schedule events in the past. I want to schedule events in the future. This is okay. I'm going to have to fix this after, because apparently I don't want to cancel this event, but I need to update all the ones in the future. I'll do it later. I'll fix it. Yeah. So anyways, to bring that back around, got a lot going on. We might use this stream as therapy for me today, so buckle up. So we have the Web Dev Challenge is going strong. Very happy with it. Greenfield Games is underway. We filmed the first episode. I was very pleasantly surprised with how well that went. and I'm really looking forward to showing everybody and also getting the rest of the episodes done. We're doing at least four. If things go well, we're hopefully going to extend that to seven for the first season. And then we're working on a spin-off of Web Dev Challenge that's going to be an arced season. So we're going to get teams together, and we're going to start with 8 teams and actually vote a team off with judges. This time it's going to be very similar to the Great British Bake Off, which was the original plan. But as I've learned, and as you may already know, it gets significantly more expensive and complicated when you start adding a lot of teams, because it's just a lot of people. There's a lot of flights, there's a lot of housing, there's a lot of space required, and all of that has put strain on this building that we're currently leasing, which just doesn't have enough space for all of that. So we've had to rent locations for the other stuff. And if you've seen on the Discord, we've got some behind the scenes photos of what happened, of how the Greenfield Games is going. And then we have, this upcoming Web Dev Challenge is an even bigger production. So we need even more of the space. We're actually going to rent the same soundstage for that. But like all in all, that rental adds a huge amount to the overall cost of running the show. And I started looking at, okay, so I was like, great. So that means we probably need to get more space. So I started looking around, what does it take to rent, say, 5,000 square feet, 10,000 square feet? And it takes a lot is the short answer. So then I was like, okay, well, what would it take to buy a building? Thinking, no way is this going to make sense. And turns out the math on buying a building is better than the math on leasing as much space as we were talking about leasing. So that kind of started as a thought experiment and suddenly became the thing I'm doing. Which is like, oh God, what have we done? And so so now I am in the midst of running these new productions. I'm also in the midst of attempting to purchase a slightly under 14,000 square foot warehouse, basically. And I'm learning more than I ever wanted to about how this whole process works. So, we're getting bids on how electrical works. We're getting bids on HVAC and sewer and electrical, and we have to get the place framed in, and that needs to include sound control. And so there's all sorts of stuff that I don't know too much about construction. It's not a thing that I've done much of. When I was a kid, I helped my dad like frame in a basement and put in like insulation bats and hang drywall. But like, that doesn't give you the requisite experience to really understand what you're asking for when you go out there and start trying to get commercial construction bids. And so I found myself kind of in this new position where, yet again, I feel like a complete beginner. Like I have no idea how any of this stuff works. I don't really have the requisite experience to be able to know if the thing I'm asking for, when you get a bid, like if I get a bid on software, I have enough experience that I kind of know whether or not that bid is reasonable. Like if somebody way underbids, I can say, hey, I don't think you're thinking this through. Like, let's talk about what you're actually going to do and find all the things you miss so that we don't get surprised later on. And if it's way too high, I can push back on that too and say like, hey, this feels like quite a bit. Can you talk me through where this is coming from so that we can make sure this lines up? When I get a bid on electrical, I have no frame of reference. I don't know how much that stuff is supposed to do. So I'm kind of relying on the honesty of the contractors as well as the experience of people that I know but don't know super well. And so it puts you in this very kind of helpless position where I feel like I'm relying very much on strangers to take care of me, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think that's how society functions. But it does leave me feeling vulnerable in a way that I'm not usually vulnerable, right? Like when I do projects, I usually know how things go, and so I have at least some information. Yeah, I think like I'm just learning how to not be an expert, and that's hard, like really hard. But yeah, $1 million. This well, and this is sort of the thing, right? Is like I got one bid back, and I don't know what HVAC is supposed to cost, but I also know that we're in the middle of maybe not the best circumstances for getting like raw materials right now, thanks to our uh, just stellar leadership at the moment. And so, I'm expecting it to come back, and it came back at like 5 times what I thought it was going to be at. And I, my gut said this is wrong. And I went back to the people that are involved in the project, and I was kind of like, can you double check? This feels high. And fortunately that time I was like, yeah, that feels really high. But on some of this other stuff, I've been like, is it really like $200,000 to replace a roof? And they're like, yeah, it's crazy, right? And I was like, oh my God. So, so I'm learning a lot. I'm also gaining some valuable, I don't, whatever. I'm teaching myself how to be okay not knowing what's going on, and it is killing me. I am very good at being in charge of things, right? Like I'm used to being the one who is like in control, who's sort of like the the person at the center who kind of has the vision and is aware of how to get it done. And this time I'm coming in as somebody who's got the vision, but none of the requisite experience. And so it like kicks that imposter syndrome into high gear. Cause I'm walking into a meeting with an architect, and I'm like, yeah, and I'd really like to, move this staircase. And you can just see in their eyes, sometimes I'll say something and they just go, oh honey. Right? And because I don't know, and it's hard to know, because sometimes I'll talk about a thing and I'm like, and this is probably really expensive, right? And they're like, oh, it's nothing. Who cares? And then I'll say like, oh, and then this thing feels like it should be easy. And they're like, oh, well, hold on there, because what you're talking about there is going to kick off this thing, this thing, this thing, and this thing. And I'm like, what do you mean? Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know. And so I'm trying not to get too overwhelmed by it all. But at the same time, I don't have an engineering degree or the ability to really understand like what triggers a permit. Um, and then it just turns into a lot. So all that to say, coming back to my original point, I'm on a different mic today because this room echoes like hell, and I am bothered by that, but not so bothered that I'm going to fix it, because if all goes well, this is a very temporary streaming setup, and we're going to end up in a better thing. Um, yeah. Well, and this is kind of the issue too, right? Is like I've gotten lower bids, but I've also like I did some renovations on my house, right? And when we did the renovations, there was a we got bids that were cheaper, and then I started looking at, like, okay, why is it cheaper? And the reason it was cheaper is that you lose the the management and the safety net side of things. So when I have a general contractor who is like overseeing the project, they are basically hiring a plumber on my behalf, and that plumber is going to give a bid that will then get marked up 20 to 30% to be done by the GC, which is, on the surface of it, my initial instinct is like, what? Why would I pay 30% more to get some work done? And then as you start to look at a more complicated project, like when we did our kitchen, we needed someone to do demolition. We needed someone to do electrical. We needed new plumbing. We needed flooring. We needed paint. We needed cabinets. We needed appliances, shelving, and some custom carpentry, and like countertops. All of these things are specialties, right? Like cutting countertops is not a thing that the person who's really good at that and has the equipment for it is not an electrician, and vice versa. So I started realizing that the value of the GC is that I didn't have to care, right? Like my 30% markup that I'm paying to that GC is so that I go to the GC and I say, this is what I want. and they make it happen. And I don't have to become an expert in knowing the difference between the tools and expertise of a counter installer and the tools and expertise of an electrician, and also understanding like how the work needs to be sequenced so that the plumber and the electrician and the counters all come in and do the work in the right order, so that there's no rework, or like, the counter goes in but then has to get ripped off because actually you got to put some more electrical in there, like things that you don't know until you know. And so that's what you're paying for, is for somebody to do that. And so then looking at this commercial stuff, the same instinct kicks in. It's like, okay, well, should I GC this so that I can save the money, because it would let me do more? The plan, right, is this is not just like more space. It's going to literally be multiple studios, and in order to do that, there's electrical that has to get done. There's soundproofing. We want to update the bathroom so that people have, like right now in our studio, there's only one bathroom, and it's just not enough. Like when you get 15 people in here, it makes it really hard. People are waiting in lines, and that sucks. You don't want that. So we want to have at least 2 functional bathrooms. And that kind of turns into like, okay, so now we need the plumbing. We want to make sure that it's ADA accessible. We want to make sure that it is nice. Like, I don't want the bathroom to feel dingy and industrial. I would like for it to feel, maybe not like fancy, but at least clean and bright and comfortable, right? Similarly, we need a kitchenette, because you need to be able to make a cup of coffee and wash a dish, and that kind of stuff needs to be possible. And so in order to do that, you need somebody who can like wire in a dishwasher, and who can do the plumbing for the sink. And is that the same plumbing job as the bathrooms? And I don't know. And then, the electrician, like we need a lot more power coming in from the street, and that requires a whole bunch of other stuff. Anyways, this is all like not that interesting. It's just sort of where it's like the only thing I think about these days. What's preventing me from hiring a construction inspector is the short answer is I'm having trouble finding one. I've reached out now to multiple people to try to get the term that I've heard is general contractor, who's kind of like the project manager coordinator for the whole thing. And we got one bid back, and I was super unimpressed with what they came back with, right? Because like if I'm hiring you in that role, my expectation is that you're going to like tell me how to get the job done. And like I'm going to give you my mess and say, this is the end vision. And I expect you to say, okay, in order to get to that vision, you're going to have to do these things. And like, here's the trade-offs or options, you can go this way or this way. And instead I felt like they were like, okay, well, what do you want to do for electrical? I was like, if I knew that answer, I wouldn't be talking to you. Right. So I'm still looking for the right GC, and I will be getting a GC. But at the same time, like I got to know what I want. I'm mocking up this building, and I need to know where, like, I have a floor plan, and can I fit the things that I want inside of this floor plan? Because to do it right, to do it the way that I want it done, I want 2 studios. I want a gear cage. I want, storage space. I need production offices. I need kind of a green room space, the kitchenette. We need bigger studios, or like smaller size studios, kind of like this size, so that we can have a ready to go podcasting studio that will ultimately probably be my home for this. We also want a desk style, like kind of a sports center style, so that people could run a 4-person podcast without having to like stand up a set. They could just sit down and push play. We want the ability for like a little co-working to happen. I still have to I have to think through that stuff, even if I have a general contractor, and I have to kind of like sketch it out somewhere. Like, even if I'm not the architect, right? The architect is gonna like make it work, but I still have to give the vision to the architect. So in order to do that, I have to at least sort of be thinking about, okay, well, can we run electrical through that? Where's the plumbing now, and where would the plumbing need to be for this floor plan to work? And like, am I introducing a huge amount of like jackhammering up the cement that makes the bottom of this building so that I can lay in new plumbing lines? Because that seems silly and expensive, when if I rewrite the plans to sort of sit on top of the existing plumbing, I don't have to do that. So lots of little things like that are just, it's all more it's all more than I thought I was getting into, which all is like, again, good problems, but it's it's like a good humbling moment, right? Like you kind of feel like you got everything figured out, and then you take that next step and you go, oh yeah, no, I still don't know shit. um, but so that's sort of my I'm currently feeling very like overwhelmed by all of this. I'm kind of sitting in a space where I mostly understand what's going on, and like I have a very clear plan of where I want to be and where I want to go, but I don't have the requisite knowledge to get there, and I also don't really know who the people are that I need to reach out to. um Speaking of which, I just got a bunch of recommendations. Give me just a second. Okay. So yeah, I'm like, it's many, yeah, built a house from scratch, took 3 years. Oh geez. Yeah. The wars are, it sucks. I'm hoping that that doesn't become a problem for me, because go America, Jesus. Um, but so here's what I was thinking. I feel like I needed to vent about that for a minute. I've now vented about that for 20 minutes. Maybe I can stop. Let's instead, I can go a couple of ways. I had an idea. I've wanted to set up a second camera angle, because on the web dev podcast and when I'm on other people's shows, this wide angle I think makes less sense. Because it, I kind of want the framing to be the same. So if somebody's framed here, I should be framed about there. And so we recently did a camera upgrade in the studio. We got a couple of Canon C50s and a C80, which are now like the main rigs. And that means that I've got the Sony FX3s. This is a Sony FX3. I have two of those, and they're not really heavily used anymore, which is one of the reasons why I'd shut down the second rig, was because I didn't want extra, like it felt like it was kept getting torn down, and I had to set it up every time, and like setting up two cameras every single time was kind of a huge pain. But now that these are a little more stationary, I think I can get away with setting up the second camera and leaving it for in at least in most cases, most weeks, it won't need to move, and I'll just be able to fire up two cameras and go. So my thought was that maybe we would do that today. And if anybody has any questions or wants to talk about whatever, we can sort of do a casual chat while I'm messing with cameras. And to make that work, I think the way that I'll end up doing this is I'm going to try setting up maybe my phone as an additional camera, and that way we can get into the gear cage and stuff, because I've got the wireless mic on today, so that I can move around and should be able to hear me pretty easily, I hope, across wherever I am in the studio. So so let me do that. I'm just gonna start this up. Let me get this other camera going. I'm gonna add an extra camera. That extra camera is going to be my phone camera, which is gonna be there. Yep. And then put that up. Maybe expand this one. Yeah. Okay. So what this will let me do then is I'm just gonna kind of go on a little adventure through the studio here. I'm gonna head to the gear closet, and I'll turn this around so that everybody can see where I'm going. So this is the Web Dev Challenge set. And as you can see, like, that's the back wall back there. That's where I used to stream. We took that over to be the lounge. This is the area where we do all of our backstage stuff. So during the performances, this is like where all the cameras get built and where hair and makeup and everything is. That's the front door. And then here's our gear closet. So what I'm thinking today is I'm going to grab this guy. We're going to get that set up. And then I'll have to go get the camera, which will be... So this is my current FX3 setup, and as you can see, it is we've got the FX3 here. It runs off of a battery, and then we've got, what is this? The 24-70 lens, and I actually sit at 70. Then there's a monitor over there so I can see what's happening, and then that's going over here. We're using the Aperture 600X to kind of light the room. I bounce it off the wall, and that sort of gives me overall lighting. And then I've got the hair light back here, and then a few practicals in the back. And that's just to give the space a little bit of warmth and whatnot. And so what I want to do is I'm going to take this tripod here, and I'm going to make an effort to set this up a little bit better. So we're gonna, so can I just pop this down? I can. Okay. This is gonna be tough one-handed. I might have to set up a different rig for this. So this guy is gonna come back here. And so what I'm thinking basically is we'll have the two cameras side by side. One of them is gonna have a longer lens, and that way I can do sort of a head and shoulders close up without having to like touch the camera or like change the zoom or anything. So we'll just be able to switch from camera 1 to camera 2. So let's go get camera 2. And if I'm ignoring you, it's because I can't see the comments right now. I will check them here in just a second. Let's get this camera first. This is my little box of everything. Let's see down here. Here's the other camera. We're gonna have to get a lens for this one, but I think I'm gonna use one of the Cine lenses, so I'll get that out of the gear cage here in a moment. So this is a Sony FX3. It's a pretty standard. It's like the one of the smallest cinema bodies you can get. This is, I think, like one of the cheapest cameras you can buy that is still like rated for streaming. So let's see here if I can get this on. I'm gonna need the actual plate for this, so I'm gonna set this down. And I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go get another quick tripod so that I can set this phone down. And then while I'm working on the rebuild, I won't be single-handed, you know. Let's see. So I need the plate, and I need lenses. Where am I? Somewhere in here I have the Dezio film lenses. Oh shit, did those get taken? I'm going to assume somebody borrowed those, which means I won't be using those lenses today. But I do need this tripod. And so I'm going to use this little guy because it's got a phone attachment. Then what else do I need? I need more. I'm going to need probably another... I don't really want to use another monitor. I might be able to get away with just running it in HDMI only, so I need a long HDMI cable. Let's set this up first. Let me swap to this other camera real quick. Okay, and so this is a cool guy. So the way this one works is it will go full size if I want it to, but I don't want it to today. Instead, what I want is I want to get this little guy out, which is an iPhone holder. And then this is going to live here. And we're going to get it set up on this guy. like so. Lock it in place, and then pop this up just a little bit so it has some mobility. And just a little bit of readjustment here. So how is this working? It's looking, that looks good. You can see all of my terrible mess. Okay. So that's going to be good enough. You voted be yeah. Let me see. How do I go back here? Yeah. So yeah, Mad CSS was so much fun. It was awesome. I definitely thought I would do better. And then I in retrospect, I can see exactly what I did wrong, which is I focused on a less visually large detail instead of if I had gotten those bottom buttons right first, I think I would have been really, really close to Kyle's score, and there was the margin would have been much smaller. And then I think it would have been less on, because I think I lost on time prioritization and not on like straight execution. I wish I would have thought that through a little bit more, and I would have gotten those buttons first and then fiddled with that little thing in the corner. And I think that Kyle and I would have been much closer in terms of our final percentages. Then we would have been competing on execution and not on time management. Your finances major, but you want to learn coding. How do you skip tutorial hell? And what mindset do you need to not get frustrated when your code does not work? Okay, let's talk about that while I start building out this camera. So I think like talking about the tutorial hell, one of the things that's really tricky about it is that you're in a position where like this is how I feel about my this building purchase. I don't know things. I know I should know things. And every time I don't know a thing, I'm like very frustrated by not knowing that thing. I'm realizing I don't have a rail, so I have to go get it. And so like that feeling of not knowing what you don't even know what you don't know, right? You just know that there are more questions to ask. And so what I have been trying to embrace, and I think this kind of holds through with any new task, is like your job right now is to remember that there's an other side, and to remember that, each of these lessons is something that many people have learned before, and that other people have been able to figure out and figure out very successfully. So this isn't like hard in the sense of you can't learn it. It's hard in the sense of there's a lot of it and you have to make sense of it. So not letting it overwhelm you in the just sheer difficulty, and instead focusing on like tease it apart, make it into small pieces, find things that are simple enough that you can understand them, and then build those, because all of this, every single thing we're doing is built from component parts. Like your ability to understand code, like every piece of code is built on the same core principles, and then it's just expansions of that. It's like language, right? Like language has grammar, and the grammar is fundamentally pretty simple. It's very difficult to master, and there's a million nuances and weird things that happen inside of the grammar, but the core of it, right? Like when you have a sentence, if you want to talk about a thing in English, the core grammatical construction is, you have the subject, the object, the verb, and the way that those relate to each other is, if you want to make sense, pretty straightforward. Right? You do things in a certain way, and you add modifiers in these places, and the subject and the object need to be oriented in this way, and that's what makes it legible to somebody who's reading or hearing that sentence. Code is the same way. It's made of the same core things. It's made of logical loops. It's made of it's made of variables. It's made of values and operators and like each of these things in itself is very simple. It's when you start, because when you start, it's like, oh, well, a variable, if I do variable const foo equals hello, that's very simple. We get that, right? Like, okay, now if I reference that variable, I'm going to get the value hello. Where it starts to get hard is when it's like, okay, but then how does that turn into like my banking system? And clearly there's more to it than that, right? And that's true, but only sort of, because the whole system is built of a lot of very simple operations. You have a variable, you do an operation, you store that in another variable, you do another operation, you combine those together, and before you know it, you've built your banking system. And the challenge, I think, becomes remembering that it's not a matter of like if you can figure this out, it's a matter of being patient enough to do it in small chunks. I'm gonna pick this up one more time, and we're gonna go on an adventure to go hunt down this piece of rail that I need. So this is a little plate that'll screw onto the bottom of the camera so that I can lock it in place. And I don't know where that is, so we're gonna go try to find. Ooh, shit! Found a cable, almost went down. Okay, so somewhere in here. Let's see, not there. It's got to be in here. So I'm gonna just set this down here, and we're gonna hunt. It might be this guy, but I'm gonna hunt around and see if I've got another one in here, because I feel like there was a specific plate for this. I'm somewhat convinced that somebody like took it off at some point and stuck it somewhere. That's always frustrating when that happens, because then it's like it's around, but you don't know exactly where. So somewhere in this studio, in one of these many, many pouches, is the exact thing that I'm looking for. But the likelihood that I'm going to find it right now when I need to feels low. So I don't know. Let's try this one and see if this is going to be the right size. And then I'm going to grab one of these long HDMI cables so that I can run the camera to the ATEM Mini. What else am I going to need? Gonna need, so we got the cable, we've got this, I always forget what this one's called, NATO rail, I think. I hope this one's the right size. I'm kind of wondering, I feel like it's a little too narrow, which is a pain. I do not see that other connector, which probably means it's stuck to the bottom of something else. I'm gonna need a battery. I'm gonna need the cables for that battery. So let's get a USB-C going here, and we'll use. Let's see. Do I have any of the actual camera ones? This is my little bag of nightmares in here. Let's see. You're probably fine. Let's use that one. All right, we got USB-C, we got HDMI, we got what might work as a NATO rail connector. And if that doesn't work, we're gonna go hunt elsewhere. We'll set this back down. Make sure that's in the right place. That's definitely the wrong thing. Damn it. Okay. So we'll set those down there for now. And back into the gear closet we go. Let me look at the questions. I'm just like peeking around my computer. Your studio looks like a raccoon encampment. I mean, this is definitely not as messy as it has been. Won't learn anything just using AI without any knowledge. That's definitely true. Many, many stacks of notebooks. I do love a notebook though. Okay, let's go hunt for this piece of NATO rail, and hopefully I'll find it. If I don't find it, we're gonna have to get creative on how I solve this problem because I don't want to waste the whole time trying to figure that out. It's got to be in here somewhere. Let me just set this down, and then I'm gonna start digging in my accessory kits until something starts to look right. That's not it. Which kit would it be in? Those are aperture accessories. Perhaps you. Oh, that's all grip stuff. That's not going to be it. Would it be attached to the bottom of something? Like it has to be attached to the bottom of something because where the heck else would it be? But which thing would it be attached to the bottom is the $1 million question. And I feel like the answer is something that I'm going to find much later. So maybe the short-term solution is instead of trying to use that tripod, maybe we put it on. Oh, wait. I can pilfer. This is bad, but I'm going to do it anyways. So this here, that's the NATO rail. It's kind of a chunkier guy. Damn it. See, but this like puts that problem back in place because now that I've taken this off of that tripod, it means that tripod now doesn't have one, so we would have to take the camera off to get this back. So I'm gonna have to like order another one of these, and that's okay. That's the way things go, I guess. Let me put this other one back so that I'm not. I should grab a battery while I'm in here. So let's get a battery. And come on, buddy. There you go. Come on. Battery, big old boy. Okay, so then we're gonna go take this back. And this is gonna go in this miscellaneous pile. I'm gonna order another, I'm almost positive this is called the NATO rail. I might be wrong, but I'll figure it out. So this goes on the bottom of the camera. And then from there, we should at least be able to get a basic picture up. Guess we'll need a lens. That is a problem I can solve. So let's see. We in frame? We're in frame. Okay, so camera. The camera, it's battery on the back. And then it's going to get this guy on the bottom. And let's see, this is that's the side they want it to be. It's going to go there. That should roughly balance. And then I need to get somewhere in here. There it is. This is a cool little cage because it's got a magnetic screwdriver on it. So I can tighten that down. Stick that right where it goes. And then this is going to allow me right there. What is that? Am I backwards? I think I'm backwards is why this is not working. Come on, what have I done? Oh, crap. I jammed this just now. Ow. Okay, we're gonna take this out so that I don't break anything. Camera comes off. It's gonna sit over here. Whoa. You're gonna come off. Now I need to figure out what the heck I just did. Okay, so that's like not. There we go. Okay, it was just backwards. So then it's going to go in just like that. This whole thing is going to turn around to be right side out. That feels a little better. Good. Yeah. All right. So this comes back in. And lock that down. Good. This comes back in. And let's flip this out. Oh, come on. Just get that screen out so I can make sure the thing's working. Then we'll tighten that down. Oh, wait, that's the opposite of tightening. Okay, then you're going in there. And that's locking that up. That feels very loose. Okay, I'm not going to stress about that right now, but I need to go grab a multi-tool to make that better. And then you go in here. So this is power cable. That runs over to the battery. Now that'll turn on, but there's no lens on it. It's got a lens cap, so it's not going to show anything. So I'm going to go get a lens. I'm not going to bring that. I'll just keep talking so you know I haven't abandoned you. So the lens I'm going to get, I think, is probably a 50, which is, I think, the right lens for what I'm trying to do here. Let's see. This one is that's a 35. I thought I had a longer one, but maybe I don't. So we're going to roll with a 35, and then we might have to move everything closer because a 35 is going to be too wide for where we are right now. But let's give it a shot. So I'm going to take this lens cap off and then this lens cap off. Stick that right in there. Okay, so now we should have picture. We do. It's blown all the way out. We're going to take that down to what I hope is native ISO. That feels good. It needs an ND, but I don't have the ability to fix that right now. So I'm going to instead stop down here. Okay. So these are all too close. And the way I'm going to fix this is, let's see. We've got HDMI out there that I'm going to run all the way around and into the ATEM Mini. And so that means this one is going to have to actually be the close-up, which means, I believe, that you're going to move up here. How close is that? That's probably not close enough. Okay, so this is going to have to move. And then this is going to have to move. think this has to come even closer. So what does that show us? This is going to be, we have manual focus right now. Manual focus, so that means we need to pull focus this way. Probably about there. Let's try it. Okay, so that's not in focus. It's going to have to come up. But that framing is better. So let's take this up a little bit. We're going to push that in just a tad, which I believe will put me in focus here. Yeah, still not in focus, but we're definitely getting closer here. So that needs to still come up a little bit more, and it needs to point this way. So we'll do that. Frame it about there. Take it a little bit deeper on the focus. Now I'm more out of focus. Now, does that mean that it's too deep or not deep enough? Gaffer tape for that cable for sure. So what I'm currently attaching is I'm trying to get a second camera going. And so the vision here is to have kind of a wide and then a tight. So let's see how that goes. So I'm going to pull that focus back just a tad. This is way easier if you've got two people, but that is not a luxury we have today. I might be able to fire up the app. There's a monitor and control. There we go. That's in focus. So that needs to come up just a tad. And then I think we're happy. So let's crank this guy up. And let's see how it feels. Are we happy? What do we think? How's everybody feel about that? I feel pretty good about that. I think, if this is the talking to someone, on a, like we're talking whatever, like having a regular conversation podcast style, or like when we cut to two cameras in Learn with Jason, this feels right. So then what we need is camera 2, which is now running but not connected. We need that one to work. So oops, wrong one. Let's go here and here. And then let's see if we can get this other one going. You can see how much closer that came. So now that camera is like right in my face, which means this one is way, way, way too wide. But I think we might be able to kind of do a sneaky thing here where, is that going to work? Let's see. I'm going to plug in this HDMI so we can actually like see it on screen. And that'll help. So try to do this without making a giant mess. So that needs to go around the pile of chairs. Let's do it this way. I'm going to take this end out. And that's going to be the camera end. So we're going to go right into the camera here. This is like a beefy cable it wants to pull. So hopefully it doesn't want to like fight this thing on direction. And then that is going to come around here. And I want all of this situated. So you are going to come around like this. Oh, I hate it. This feels very, very danger zone. I think I'm going to do, before I get too far here, what even is this? Literally trash. This is a bag of trash. Then we've got this guy, which is effectively trash. It's a cable management system we're never going to use, but I can just ignore that entirely by sticking it here. The bag of trash can go out. Now we can get some of these chairs into a safer space so that I'm not climbing across them to do this. So I'm going to take this chair up and carefully weave it out of here. Try not to hook anything. And then that guy's going to go back here and just be as out of the way as I can make it. I'm going to hook this here for a moment while I do the same thing with this chair. And we're going to see how many of these I can get into this corner without causing a bunch of trouble. I think that'll be okay. And then one more. There's my backpack. That's going up there for now. And this chair is a little more awkward. Oh, buddy, come on. Not that cable. And actually, that's fine. It's not ideal, but we'll live with it. This can come forward now, but not too much because we've got the cable on it. And really what I should do, I might want to bypass this monitor and instead use that monitor as like what I could do that would be really cool. I don't use this top handle for this particular setup. So if I took the top handle off and I put a microphone on, or I put the monitor on, I could potentially run this as a third monitor for my setup and put the guest here so that when I'm talking to somebody, I can actually see them. Because right now I have I'm looking into the lens, but the person I'm talking to is actually over there. That would be very cool. All right, one problem at a time. We're going to do this thing first. You remember when I said I didn't want to put a lot of time into this space and then did a whole thing to customize this space? The other thing that I should do, that I actually won't do, I'm not going to do that today, is put together, I should put together a sound blanket on the wall to catch some of you can probably hear, this is a pretty reverby space because it's just a little rectangle and there's no sound control whatsoever in it. And so that ends up being kind of an issue, obviously, because you don't want every space you're in to be deeply echoey. Where's my, let's see, there's my USB or my A10 Pro. So we're going to run that over here. I can't reach it from that angle, so I'm going to come over this way. We're going to plug this in here. Okay, and then theoretically speaking, this is going to look bad, but I think what will happen is when I hit the 2 button, there we go, we get camera 2. So framing is bad, but general concept is right. We have camera 1, camera 2. So we need to get this one configured. The framing needs to be fixed. And then once the framing is fixed, we need to probably set it up to do a LUT out. Let's see. How do you overcome uncertainty and imposter syndrome? This is a great question. So let's talk about that for a second. I think for me, I mean, let's talk a little bit about what imposter syndrome is, right? Imposter syndrome to me is the experience of like getting credit or recognition for something that you don't feel you are qualified to receive, right? If I always think of like movies where the comedy is kind of like it's like Forrest Gump, right? Like the whole movie of Forrest Gump is these sort of fun experiences where Forrest Gump will do a thing and then there's sort of an unintended consequence where he becomes a war hero or invents the smiley face or whatever it is, right? To me, that's kind of like the imposter syndrome thing is like he didn't mean to do any of that stuff. He didn't have the skills or the training. He just sort of stumbled into it and got lucky. Um, I think we often use imposter syndrome to as a synonym for feeling like everybody around us knows more than we do, which is different from being an imposter, right? I think feeling like you're surrounded by experts and feeling like you've fooled everybody into believing that you know something, in my opinion, are two very different things. And so the first thing is just examining that thought. What are you currently feeling? Are you feeling like you've actually pulled one over on everybody and you don't actually know what you're doing? And if somebody gives you a task, you can't do it? Because that's a different thing. Like if you've I don't know, for example, you had somebody else do your interview so that you could get your job, and you literally don't have the training to do the job that you've been hired to do. You're an imposter, right? But if you did the work, if you earned the job, if you're turning in work that's not being rejected, you can do the job. You are by definition not an imposter. So going with the other like less accurate definition of imposter syndrome being the suspicion that everybody around you is more competent, in my experience, there is no objective way to prove that you know enough, right? So no matter what you do, it will always feel like you could have done more or that somebody else knows more. And I think there's a couple ways that you can go about that, right? Like that can be felt with a measure of despair, like, oh my God, I'll never be enough. I'll never know enough. I'll never learn everything. And that's a bummer, I think, to approach it that way because it sort of means that the only way to ever not feel bad is to be literally the best of the 8 billion something people on this planet at the thing that you want to be good at. And that just is kind of it's setting you up to fail, right? Because if only one person can ever not be an imposter, that I don't know, that just doesn't feel good, right? And I suspect that you're not holding anybody around you to that same level. Like you're not saying that, your coworker needs to be the best engineer that you've ever met or you will not respect them or treat them well, right? They're good. They do their job. They're fine. You probably know people who are better, you probably know people who are worse, and that's okay because that's what being an adult is you're typically somewhere in the middle of the pack in the vast majority of things. Um, and so I think for me, the way that I've addressed imposter syndrome is I have to look at it against the sort of objective outcomes. And like when somebody gives me a job, can I do it? When people ask me a question, can I answer it? When I don't know the answer to something, am I typically able to solve my own problems? When somebody shows me the answer to something, do I retain it and not have to ask that question again? If the answer to those questions is yes, then you're not an imposter. You're perfectly competent, right? And the fact that your experience is maybe lacking in certain areas where somebody else has more experience is good. That means that your team is well rounded. Right? Like if everybody on your team knows exactly the same things, that's kind of bad. You're probably heading towards some unexplored doors and corners that all of you with exactly the same experience wouldn't think to explore. I think that imposter syndrome in my mind is it's sort of like a creeping symptom of just a general sense of doubt and a general sense of dissatisfaction with your own progress. Feeling like you haven't learned everything, in my opinion, should not feel bad. It should just be a reminder that you can't like settle. You never get to say, okay, I've learned enough and I'm done. And if you think about that on like a long time scale, the vast majority of us are sitting probably in the beginning to middle of our careers, right? Like I'm making an assumption that most of the people watching this have at least 15 years left on their career, if not 35. And if you're aiming to retire at 67, which is I think the current retirement age in the US, then for me I'm 40 this year, so 27 years of continued work before I hit the official retirement age. I don't want to be done, right? Like I don't want to sit for the next 27 years and not learn anything because I've learned enough. I feel like that would be a really sad way to live. I'm kind of excited that there's a million things I don't know. And as much as I complained at the beginning of this stream about like being overwhelmed by this building, I am very happy that I'm learning it. And I'm very like overwhelmed by how much of it there is, but I'm not sad that it's happening. Like I don't want it to not be happening because I'm learning. I'm growing. I'm like gaining more experience and more skills, and that feels very good, very that's productive, right? Like I am it's rewarding, I guess is a better word than productive. I am very rewarded every time I see that there's a remaining question mark and then I go answer that question. And I find it exciting that generally speaking, when you see an unknown and you go figure out that unknown, it tends to present more questions that it answers. And that means that your mind is expanding, your experience is getting broader, and your ability to do more things in stranger applications is strengthening. Like the version of me at 22, for example, who was, fresh out of my band, I had exactly one set of skills, which was I could design things that kind of felt like emo band tour posters and merch. I could build websites that were really similar to my emo band's website. And I could work with a client as long as that client was really similar to my bandmates. I felt like an imposter because I'd never had paying clients before. I felt like an imposter because I hadn't built websites for anybody but ostensibly myself. And that wasn't like, as I got my first client, that didn't make me feel like I knew everything, but it made me feel like I knew some stuff. And then when I got my second client, I felt better. And my third client, I felt better. When I got my job at IBM, it started all over again. I'd never worked in a big company before. I was like, I don't know how corporate politics work. I don't know how the systems are going to work. I don't know what to expect. I'm probably going to screw this whole thing up, right? There was a whole bunch of reasons that it was going to go wrong. And I just kind of asked questions and learned more stuff and got better. And, I brought in all my technical skills, but I had to learn all the social and political skills. And that was hard, right? There were a lot of people around me who were better. But through learning that, I got more experience and more capabilities so that I could do more things. And each step that I've taken has allowed me to sort of take broader and broader stock of what's available to me. And from, my early days of thinking that my only option was to be a touring musician, I've somehow expanded that to being able to be a web developer, to a software engineer, to a full stack dev, to a developer educator, to a developer advocate, to a tech executive, to a business owner. And then, that allowed me to step across the industry divide. And now I'm in this video production and and now I'm stepping across into commercial real estate. Each of these things is not something that I necessarily feel like I know how to do. And I feel like an imposter at every step of the way when I'm standing in a room with an architect talking about my vision and just worried that the whole time in their head, they're going like, man, this guy doesn't know anything. Um, I know that I don't know it, right? And so I'm not an imposter because I'm not pretending to have an answer. I'm inexperienced and I'm owning the fact that I don't have experience as an architect or as an engineer on buildings or as an electrician or as a plumber. I don't know how that stuff works, but I do know that I need it and I do have a vision for how I'd like it to be done. And so when I'm talking about it, I don't pretend to know how they should do their jobs. I just know what I need to be true at the end and I'm trying to represent that accurately. And along the way I pay attention and I ask questions and I learn more. And so now I know a lot more about how electrical works for a commercial building than I did 3 weeks ago. Absolutely could not do it myself, but I can ask better questions when I talk to an electrician, right? I have a better idea of what things should cost and how long things should take because I'm paying attention. And that's going to make me a little bit better when I have more conversations later at getting better estimates and working better with contractors and all those things. And that's exactly what I did with film. That's what I did with software. It's what I did with leadership. And it's what I'll continue to do for, the next 27 years of my career until I retire or whenever I decide I'm done. And so as a thinking, developing, functional human being, I think the most exciting thing for us is that there's always something new to learn and trying to invert that relationship with unknowns and making it a reason to keep going as opposed to a reason to feel bad. I think the only way to really be an imposter is to pretend. And so if you're trying to show up in meetings and talking like you know things that you don't know, yeah, it's probably right to feel insecure about that because somebody's going to catch you and then you're going to feel really bad. But if you don't represent that you know things that you don't know, like if you're in a room and somebody asks a question and you have experience with the thing they asked, answer it. You have experience. You have relevant knowledge that can help solve that problem. If the next question they ask goes outside of your experience, the fact that you answered one question does not mean that you have the answer to all questions. So think about it. And if it's something that you don't know, you can say, I'm not sure. I've never done that before, but I bet we can find out. Now you're not an imposter. You're a coworker. You're a fellow traveler. You are a colleague, right? And it is very easy to respect somebody who owns what they do and don't know and is willing to put that work in, right? I think that to me that's the right way to handle this stuff. It feels adult, it feels proactive, it feels sustainable, and I think it gives you permission in a lot of ways to sort of let go of the guilt and just continue to be a person. You can be a person who's got things to learn and not necessarily have to be perfect and all knowing, right? So that's yeah, that's a thing. If you found yourself doing what you love, imposter syndrome is already 50% gone. I think that's sort of true, but like I love a lot of the stuff that I'm doing. I also still have no idea what I'm doing. I think a lot of it is really just understanding that everybody feels the same way and that your goal is never to get rid of the feeling of not knowing. It's more to make it part of your process in a productive way. What kinds of problems did you face when you were learning coding and how did I overcome it? Let's keep working on this setup while we talk about that. So for me, when I was working on learning to code, I had a few like core problems. The biggest one, let's see if I can just sneak this guy right in here, because that would be neat. Let's see. Can I get you to sit here? How about that? Then you can go over here. So for me, the challenge that I faced when I was learning to code was that, I had a million ideas, but I didn't really have the practical experience to be able to execute on them. And so I just kind of felt at all times like I didn't know who to ask. And I was working in a situation that was very much, it was, I don't know, I was pretty isolated. So that's a lot closer. We're panned down too much. Let me pan up. And so, from my standpoint, what I was sort of up against as a solo dev trying to figure out how to make all this stuff work, I was in this situation where I was alone. I lived in Montana and I didn't have a huge amount of like network or access. And so a lot of what I was trying to figure out was like how to do this stuff without a support network. And so I had to leverage a lot of online networks. And this was, in the 2000s. And so my experience was almost exclusively the W3 Schools forum, which was not something that I really thought was going to be useful because everybody hates W3 Schools, right? So my experience or my expectation was that the W3 Schools forum was going to be absolutely trash and that like nobody would be helpful and everybody would be silly and wouldn't know the answers. How do we feel about that? I feel like that's okay. It's not, I don't know. It's not, it's definitely not perfect. And I need to do color correction and everything, but like that's framing is okay. I think I'm going to take it up just a little bit. You go here. That feels all right. That's all right. How's our camera one, camera two? Camera one, camera two. Let's pull this in a little bit more. Okay, so not quite right. Crap. Okay. Give me just a second. I'm gonna go use the restroom and then I will return. And I'm gonna remember that I'm wearing a wireless microphone and not carry it into the bathroom with me. So I'll return. Okay. All right, let's get that wired up again. Yeah. I fortunately have never done that, but I have heard horror stories. I do love gear probably more than I should. So let's switch back to this view here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can get the color output going on this thing the way that I want. Because I might, and I guess we'll see. Select LUT. Do I have one? That might be the one I need. Temperature on this one is 5,500. So let's set that to 50. Nope. 5,500. And then we're at 2398, which means you need to be 2398. Shutter is at 150. Do I get that option? Yes, I do. Iris is too low. Let's stop up to there. Let's see what happens because that kind of feels like we're pretty close. All right, let's see what this looks like. So this, oh, that's going to be too much. Let's see. So I'm out of focus, and that's part of the problem, but this is way blown out. So we want, there's also just like no separation from the background whatsoever. I think I need a longer lens for this to work the way that I want it to. I'm wondering if the solution then is to actually swap. Well, if the 35 is in close enough to be, I think I just need to get a longer lens for the, instead of the 35. I need like probably a 50 minimum, and I feel like maybe I don't. I thought I could have sworn I had a 50, and I didn't see it in there, and now I'm wondering if I like put it somewhere or what. But so if we go 1 to 2, let's try to get in focus, and let's see if I can. So that should be about the right focus distance. And we're gonna close down the iris a little bit. Okay, so that feels a little less, still a little bit wild. Let's try. Let me try a different color profile here because I think I'm not, like the cameras are definitely not going to match because we're on one of them. That might be enough actually. Let's try. So this camera is not running through a monitor, but this camera is running through a monitor, and that monitor has a LUT on it, and the LUT has a look. I have not loaded that LUT onto this camera, but I think we can just sort of mess with color a little bit to get the balance down. This one, I feel a little better about the background separation now. And so I think if I can just tweak this color balance a little bit, I'll feel better. So let's play with, I think we just need to cool it off a bit. That's making it worse. Let's go. Try 47. How does 47 look? That's 4,700 Kelvin. Pretty close. Still a little too warm. Let's take it down to 45. I mean, it's like a little washed out, but it's fine, right? I also want it to be a bit higher. I feel like the angle is a little too like I'm kind of imposing here, and I don't necessarily want that. I want it to be probably eye line. So I'm going to see if I can take it up without blowing the frame. Let's try to get it up at same height as this other camera. And then we're going to frame down, which maybe solves my hesitation about this particular frame. Let's see. I mean, I hate that less. I think we kind of need to split the difference a little bit. Yeah. Come down a little bit and pan up a little bit, and I think that'll be closer. So we're going to come down. We're going to pan up. Take it as high as I can without hitting rigging. I feel like this is going to look a lot like I want it to, but then it loses the desk a little bit, which is kind of a bummer. What if I bring the desk up? Still have completely lost that desk. So we can, I don't necessarily want to pan down more. I feel like that'll be kind of wild. So instead, I'm going to lower just a little bit. Then what's that? What are we getting from there? Let's see. You ever just hyperfixate on a problem and you're like, no, one more tweak will fix it. No? Me neither. Okay, so this is close. So for this one, I want to be standing here. And for this one, I want to be standing. Oh, that sucks a little bit. I guess like that's an adjustment I can make, is just kind of here, 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 and then here, just kind of a foot adjustment. I don't know. It's fine. It's fine. Let's see. So yeah, so the plan with this is specifically when I'm doing this show, I like this wider view. I want more of the set to be in view. And so what I'm attempting to figure out right now is I want to be able to do this sort of like wide view in a way that doesn't compete, or I guess that doesn't like force a huge overhaul of how the rest of the set works. And so I think I might just have to actually, this might be fine, because if I take this guy off, which I never use anyways, that is actually just fine. You come off here. That's gonna get replaced so that I don't lose it. And then you somehow, how does this? Oh, the whole thing comes off. Oh boy. Okay. So this comes out like this. And then it's gonna unstring from the case, or from the cage, I should say. Okay, then this needs to go back. Well, actually, I probably don't want it to go back, because I want to eventually put this back together, and I don't necessarily want to have to take it all apart for that to be true. So I can here, put this around here, and then that solves this problem nicely. Well, that's actually going to be perfect if it works the way I want, which it just might do. Just lean this a tad. up a little bit. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I think that's going to work. Let's try it. So let's get this one back in view. Right, so this looks good. And then, okay, can I cheat this one? Yeah, I need to cheat it just a little bit. Really, maybe here, here. I want this. So maybe this one cheats a little bit instead. How's that going to work? Yeah, colors are definitely a little bit weird. I'm going to have to mess with that. I'm going to do my best to not have to apply. I think I can just load a LUT into this camera, and that would give me the ability to use the same LUT on the Sony will put it out in log. It's S-Log3 is the FX3 format. And then using that log format, then the LUT gives me, so this one is going through a LUT, right? And this one is currently the Sony in-camera Rec 709 conversion, which, yeah, I agree is a little more saturated and in a way that I don't love. So I think the real solution is to get the LUT that I'm using on this monitor into the camera itself. I want this I need it to be just the tiniest bit more cheated over. Because I don't want, how's that? Is that going to do what I want? Okay, so when I stand here, like, that's the frame. And I don't think I'm going to be able to get exactly what I want because that would require the cameras to occupy the same space. So, what led me to come up with the idea of mixing web dev with entertainment? You got a similar story with media, music, Hollywood creative studio, web dev, currently the software engineer transition step. But for me, people's stories like yours, what helped me get over the imposter syndrome. I mean, I think like my thought about getting into this was very kind of one thing led to another. I was working as the VP of developer experience at Netlify, and prior to that, I was a principal DX engineer there, reporting to Sarah Drasner. And I remember I had been live streaming for a long time, and it felt close, but not exactly what I wanted. And so I started kind of thinking about what I actually wanted, and I realized that, especially during the pandemic, everything was a Zoom call, and the last thing that anybody ever wanted to do was get on another Zoom call. But that was kind of the only way we could communicate with anyone. So what do you do to beat that? If the only thing out there is a Zoom call or in person, and in person is getting harder and harder to pull off because companies don't really have education budgets anymore. They're not flying people to conferences. So short of you as an individual going on tour, which obviously is fun, but not really feasible for a lot of folks, you don't want 80% travel. That's not a sustainable way to live for the vast majority of people who are employed. Then you have to figure out a way to bring people to you. And the only way that I could think of that people chose to do at the height of everything being a Zoom call was they would watch TV. And people were, they were watching their favorite shows. You'd see discussion on social media about, The Bachelor, or about the latest season of Game of Thrones, or the latest season of The Last of Us, or, people were watching these shows together, and they were discussing them, and they were having a good time kind of talking about who was doing what and how the story was progressing, and they would make predictions and they would be upset that somebody got voted off or whatever. And so each of those experiences kind of became this shared experience that sort of expanded beyond what was actually in the show. And you don't get that with a webinar. You don't get that with a Zoom call. It needed to be something that was more entertainment based. And so then I just started thinking like, well, what's the one that I like to watch? And it was the Great British Bake Off. And that was the show that we watched through most of the pandemic. And I loved the cozy vibes. And so I just started leaning into it. I was like, well, what if we made that, but for devs? What would that take? And I was pushing for it at Netlify, and they kind of got it, but they didn't get it. And, I don't blame them. It was a big, weird ask. But I realized if I wanted to make it, I was going to have to go solo. And so that was kind of what led me to take the leap and give this a real shot. And now that people have seen it, there's a better understanding of what's going on and like why it's a good idea. And later this year, we'll finally get to do one that is like a story arc. It's going to be the same people week to week. We're going to see, my theory is that when people get a chance to see a story that's continuous, it's going to be a no-brainer. People will kind of just immediately like, oh my God, this is so cool. They're going to want to talk about it. You'll make predictions of who's going to stay and who's going to go. And you're going to be mad when your favorite contestant gets voted off and upset that somebody that you can't stand is winning. All the things that happen when you watch one of these competition reality shows, and except it's going to be about stuff that you have a very strong opinion about because it's literally your job, right? You're going to know exactly how each of these people is doing something and how they're, whether or not they're doing, in your opinion, good work. And I think that's going to make it so much more fun because you really can kind of interact with these things in a more like true way. This is your area. And so I think that's going to make for a really fun viewing experience and a really good opportunity for people to argue and talk about it online and have a kind of a shared experience of watching these shows together. So that's been the vision since, I don't know, 2019 when I started pushing at Netlify to do something like this. And it'll be, what is that, like 6-7 years of pushing to get to the first iteration of like what I was really going for. I'm really hopeful that it hits the way that I want it to hit, because like I believe with my whole heart that I'm right, but I've never actually been able to prove it. And so we're going to see, right? Like I might do this and everybody will be like, I don't know, man. I think like the regular web dev challenge is better. And I don't think that's true, but we're going to find out. But yeah. Favorite kind of pizza. This is a good one. I am a really big fan of the Detroit style pizza. And as far as toppings go, I'm very simple. Like I think that a pizza should have no more than 3 toppings on it, because at that point you start to sacrifice the structural integrity of the pizza for toppings, which I don't think is a good call. So like pepperoni, onion, mushroom is my usual go-to. Like if you put that on a pizza, I'm pretty happy. Also very happy to just do a straight pepperoni pizza. I think pepperoni mushroom is like usually my, that's what I order if I want to like get a vibe for how a place is, whether or not I like it. Generally speaking, I want a pizza that is more like a little deeper dish, more of like a crust that has a little more oil in it, so that it has kind of like a fry bread vibe when it's cooked. But at the same time, like show me a pizza that's made well and I'm going to be very, very happy. And like Portland pizza is really good, to the extent that like the modernist pizza authors called Portland the best pizza city in the country. And I don't think their argument was that like Portland has a specific regional pizza that is better than all other pizzas. I think their argument was more that like people from everywhere have moved to Portland who are experts in their style. So there's people from New York who've come out to do New York style pizza, people from Detroit who come out to Detroit style pizza. We've got square pizzas, we've got Sicilian pizzas, we've got flatbreads, we've got sourdoughs, we've got, our own unique weird, there's a place here called Lovely's 50/50 that like frequently puts flowers on pizza, like, weird, right? But there's also a piece of Shoals, which just does a like sourdough, thin crust, nice big slice. And that pizza is hard to mess with, man. It's like good, good. Um, let's see. So just kind of scan in. Good conversation going in the chat. As long as you keep pushing, you'll get where you want to be. I do love that. Um, how do I approach my learning? What method do I use for learning a new concept? I am a big fan of learning by playing. Um, I every time that I have made big progress in my skill set, it's been because I was doing lots of projects that were slightly outside of my skill set, but like challenged me to go a few steps further. I really believe that there's a ton of value in the continual experimentation and sort of like pick a project and make that project. And it should be something that's there to amuse you, to solve a small problem, to make your friends laugh. Like keep it simple, keep it fun, scope way down. Don't worry about making it perfect. You don't have to launch a business every time you build a website. You can just like make a thing because it was fun to figure out how to make that thing work. And it lets you focus on like the specific skill you're trying to develop, and rather than every project needs to be a fully complete thought. A lot of times, if you look at my code pen, for example, it's littered with a bunch of things that were, I had this idea for like how an interaction could work. And I didn't want to like build it. I just wanted to try it out. And so it's a couple rectangles that move in a certain way. And that's fine. Sometimes I'm just working through an idea and I don't need it to be perfect. And I don't need to show anybody. I just kind of wanted to try it because it was fun. Other times I have a small idea that makes me laugh. And so I'll make it in the simplest possible form so that I can share it with somebody and see if they laugh. Right. And it lets me keep things nice and simple, scope down the problem, work on just the specific problem set that I'm trying to learn, and add one skill at a time, and forgive myself for not having a production ready database, or for, adding in a bunch of security and user management features. Like it's okay sometimes to just build a form that when you submit things, it puts whatever you submitted on the page and then resets when you load the page, right? You don't need to keep everything in a database. Not everything needs to be a completely functional app. Like a proof of concept to learn something is actually great. It takes the pressure off, right? Like I think in my younger days, I always thought that if I had an idea, that if I wasn't willing to follow that idea all the way through to being a business, why bother? Because what am I doing if I'm not like trying to further my career? And I think I had to come to terms with the knowledge that sometimes furthering your career is just like getting a few reps in on something, and not necessarily like taking all of the steps. Like if you, like a professional athlete, right? When they're playing, they're in a game and they're playing for real. They got to do everything right, and they have to follow all the steps, and they have to, remember all the rules, and they're trying to win the game. But the vast majority of the time that athlete is existing, they're not playing games. They're practicing. They're shooting 1,000 free throws. They're running drills. They're doing all this stuff that's not actually the game. They're not trying to win anything. They're just trying to practice like that one mechanic that makes them better. And I think that if we think of our skills as in a similar way, where practice is what makes us really good, then how do you make practice fun and sustainable? It's not fun to just sit down and do drills for 10 hours a day. It is fun to play a game. So can you make the thing you want to learn into a game in some small way? And whatever it is that makes it fun for you, that's what you should keep doing. And I think it should be stated very clearly that like what is fun for you might not be fun for me, and vice versa. Like I love goofy little unserious projects because that makes me laugh, and it takes the pressure off of getting it right. Other people really like to do leak code drills, or they like to do advent of code, or they like to do a cohort sort of thing, like 100 devs, because that gives them some kind of structure or a score, or something that they find very rewarding. I don't like that. I don't like being beholden to somebody else's time scale. And so, for me, the fun is sort of playing against myself. Can I make something a little bit cooler than I made last time? I find that very fun. I find that very engaging, and that keeps me motivated. If that's not you, that's okay. You don't have to do it the way I did it. Just look for the thing that makes you want to keep showing up, right? This is a lesson that I've recently been learning with fitness, because I've been consistent in the gym for the last year. And prior to that, I always went to a gym of some sort, but I went infrequently. My target was to go 3 days a week. I would usually make it one or two. I'd always have some excuse. I was busy, something came up, there was whatever. Um, when I started going to the gym that I'm going to now, it's a powerlifting gym. And it turns out that's the thing that I really enjoy. I look forward to it. And so I've been consistent getting in 4 days a week, most weeks, with the exception being like I'm out of town or I have a production that starts super early in the morning and goes all day. Otherwise, I'm there because I want to be there. It's fun. I want to go in and see what I can do and kind of make that progress. And I think that is a very underrated thing. Like we have a culture that is built around like discipline and perseverance and grit, and we talk about it like it should suck, like you're supposed to suffer to gain skills. And I think that there is a certain amount of like you have to be willing to push through something uncomfortable. um because it doesn't matter how fun the gym is, like you're going to be sore and there's going to be days when you didn't sleep very well and you don't want to go. And so you got to push through that and you got to show up. But I also think you can give yourself a lot of advantages if you are designing your life in a way that's built around things that are motivating to you. Like it's fun to do the things that you want to do. I like powerlifting, and it's fun to me to go in and see how much I can squat today. So that is motivation that allows me to not require a ton of willpower to then go to the gym. It's like, yes, I didn't sleep very well and I would rather stay in bed, but like I also have fun once I get there. So it's a little bit easier to say, no, just go. You're going to be happy once you're there. Right. Whereas before I was doing these sort of circuit training style workouts and I didn't like them. It was a lot of running. It was a lot of body weight stuff, burpees. And I know it's good for me, but I didn't like it and I didn't look forward to it. And I was always kind of looking for excuses to not go. So if I slept bad, I'd be like, yo, I'm tired. I'm not going to be able to perform today. It's just not worth going. And then I easily let myself off the hook and not go. So like similarly with all this stuff, like you are trying to find, you're trying to find all the little ways to give your brain treats so that you keep working in your best interest. Like, and whatever it takes for you to do that, I think that's the right way to do it. I personally am very motivated by fun and play. If you're motivated by high scores, try it, set it up that way, and experiment with different ways of doing things too, because probably there's a way that's fun that you'll enjoy. And just remember that like nothing is 100% fun all the time. So you're not looking for a thing that doesn't feel like work. You're looking for work that feels worth doing and that's enjoyable to do, right? Um, but yeah, convert mockups to code for work. Thought it'd be a good idea to find an open source website builder, convert it to Svelte, and rewrite parts to fit your needs. Very fun and practical. 100%. Love stuff like that. Natural progression, like the previous career changes. Full reality show would be interesting. Would there be reasons in the narrative where the cast would travel? Well, kind of. Like we're going to film it in Portland, and so it's 6 weeks of 2 days a week of filming, which means either everybody has to be local to Portland, which I don't really want. That feels limiting. Or, and this is what we budgeted for, we fly everybody out every week, which is kind of a logistical nightmare, but also it makes it's just so much. I don't know. I want to be able to bring people in, and I think it's important that people can be part of this. And we're already like geographically limited to the US because of travel costs, and also because I'm not trying to bring anybody in the United States until whatever's going on with our politics calms down a little bit. But limiting it to just Portland, I feel like we wouldn't get the results I want. Like I want to be able to go global, but I will settle for being able to go national. So but like we're not going to travel for the show, not this time. Like we're not going to take the devs to different places as much as I would love to be able to do something like that, and that would be fun. It's just not really in the cards right now. I think it would be a little too much right out of the gate. Let's see, what do we want to do here? How are we doing on time? It is coming up on time. I should probably start doing my other things. Gotta go do building stuff. I gotta like call architects and gotta have I got an intro to an engineer that I need to work through. My shoe came untied. What are you doing down here? So I might just give it a few more minutes here and then call this. But I think what I'd like to do is see if I can get these colors doing what I want. And maybe first I'm gonna try the really simple approach, which is I'm gonna swap the close-up camera over to Rec 709 from the internal color conversion. And we'll know this time that the LUT looks better, but the camera should look the same. So let's see how that works. I guess let me swap this over so that you can actually see what I'm doing while I'm over here. So basically this camera is currently directly running in. And this camera is routed. You can see it's running, I think you can see, this camera is running into this monitor, which then is running into the ATEM. And so what I'm going to do instead is I'm actually going to run this camera directly into the ATEM. And we're going to see what that does to the picture. So we got that guy there. We're going to switch over to Rec 709, and then we're going to come back over here. We're just going to take a little look-see at what happens. So now that's our wide and that's our close, and you can definitely see a color difference. Oh man. Okay, so I'm going to have to color match these. I think they're both, this one's at 45 and I think this one's at 55. That's why the warmth is so off. And then I think I need to stop the color down just a little bit on this close-up. So let's try that and see how it feels. So we're going to color match first. That's 45. Let's see how it looks. Okay, so that's 45. Okay, so color-wise, these are now matching close enough that I'm not mad. Like, I think that looks okay, right? Like, color-wise, these aren't wildly out of sync with each other. And that's good enough for me to live with. So next, let's fix the light levels. I think this first one, sitting at 1.3. This one is sitting at 2. And so let's see if I can actually stop this one down and then open up the iris a little bit and see if that feels better. Because I feel like it's really, what's that going to look like? You're at 3.2, you're at 3.2. Theoretically, these should feel pretty close, but let's try. 1, 2. So now this one's just a tiny bit too bright. So we're going to stop that one down. Take it to like 4. What's that going to do? This is F4. So 1, 2. Go. That's a little better. Might stop this one down just a little bit too. It feels like it's kind of hot. So let's go down to F4 on this guy also. Let's see how that feels. Okay, F4. Take that. We're going to split the difference on this one. Going up to 3.5. There we go. That's right. Then, just a little bit irritating that this, how much space, like we're immediately going to hit this light. Can I scooch you out a little further? And then that's going to be, should be about right. Is that working? Yep, that's there. So then we're going to see if we can get a little bit more turned here. A little bit more out. Like so. And then theoretically speaking, when I stand here, that's like more out than it was before. And then this one still looks fine. This one, this is where I want to be standing, is like right here. And then you should be here. Damn it. Okay, let's try. Let's try one more time. We're going to get it. We're going to figure this out. How much of this can I get? You? Let's see. Let's see how that worked. Okay, so if I set up in the spot that I want to be in, which is here, right? And then we go camera 2. It's close. This might be about as good as we're going to get, and I just have to do a little bit of a side step to frame up in this one, and then when we switch to this one, I'm going to have to lean over a little bit, and then side step here. I mean, that I think that's about as much as I can hope for without these cameras being like very carefully rigged to be right on top of each other. I want to pan up a little or tilt up a little on this one. That one I'm happy with, so I'm going to leave that one alone. And I want just the tiniest bit more headroom on this one. So we're going to come up. Like that. Okay, so that one's good. That one's better. Yeah, that feels a little less like I've got some headroom here. And then this one feels good. Let's see. That feels good. Should I be taller? What does that look like? No, I don't like that. There? Maybe. Should I be, I kind of don't want my head clipped, but maybe it should be at this. Let's tilt down just a bit and see. Coming down. Like that. Tiny bit more. And that puts us here, right? Which is that feels like a good tight. That's a good tight. And then that doesn't, the longer comments don't cover my face. And framing, eyes are a little bit out on this, but I think I'm gonna live with it. Because in a perfect world, like your eyes are at the same eye line, but I don't want this to be here. That feels like that's too much headroom. So I think we're gonna live with a bit of an eye jump. Yeah, so that's all right. Not have you don't want the background is blurred. Let me try it. We'll have to mess with the different stops. Let's see. So if I go out like this, right, then we would need to bring up the ISO. Maybe like there. So that gives us less bokeh, but still separation. So it softens it up, but doesn't blow it out. And then that one I would love to have more bokeh on, but I think we're going to have to live with what we got. So I don't think there's anywhere for me to go on this one. Have to like, well, maybe actually, let's try it. Make that a little bit softer. Yeah, I'm not sad about that. So that's one, that's two. This one needs to come up a tad then, just to be like, this is too bright. Let's see, can I get this one to go a little dimmer without? No, that's the end of what we get from that one. There, maybe. Let's see what that does. And then you. Maybe? Let's try it. Okay, so that should be a little bit brighter on this one and a little bit dimmer on this one. No, wait, a little brighter on this one, a little dimmer on this one. That feels pretty close. I think we can live with that. So we've got soft focus, but not like ultra blur going. And then this has a little bit softer focus so that it's not like distracting, like super in focus here, but not so out of focus that it looks weird and Netflixy. That's like an issue with a lot of like modern shows, is that they hard blur everything so hard that you can't even tell, you know, it's like, why even go somewhere? You can just shoot everything against a blank wall. It all looks, it's just a blur. Cool. So last thing that would be cool now that I've got it is I've got this this monitor now that theoretically I could run into the CalDigit as an external monitor. And if I do that, I can set it up as like a face cam so that I can actually see the person I'm talking to. So that kind of sounds like fun. So let's try it. And the way we're going to do that is let's get this a little more visible here. We're going to go this way a bit. Okay. And so this is the monitor, right? So this currently, or what it was, is this camera was feeding into this monitor, which was then feeding into the computer. But I took this out of the chain, which means that now we can use it for something else. So what I would like to do, if I can figure it out, is I've got this HDMI to USB-C cable here. And the experiment is going to be seeing if I can run this in. I've got one more Thunderbolt port on the CalDigit TS5 Plus. And if this works, I think this is Thunderbolt. I'm going to find out. Then I should be able to run this monitor as, let's see, this is the in. So HDMI comes out. This goes in. If that works, I'm going to get a notice on my computer that I have a monitor available, which that's the input. That was the output. Let's go to displays. Nope, displays. That's not showing. I don't know if that's showing. Let me try a different cable, because we've done this with other monitors in the studio, with these specific monitors in the studio, which has me wondering if this cable, it doesn't support it. So let me grab that cable. I have another one out here that is somewhere. It's in this guy, I think. Let me see. We've got a box full of miscellaneous stuff, and inside the box of miscellaneous stuff are a bunch of cables, including, that's USB-C. None of those looks like the cable I'm after. Okay, so we're going to look elsewhere for it. And if I was that cable, I would have been... what a good question. Maybe he got shoved in here? Sure did. Okay, perfect. Perfect. That's what I needed. Okay, so now I have the right cable. And I'll have to buy another one of these if this is the case, because this is a cable that we can't. So this one is this is a Pearstone HDMI to USB-C, but it's newer. The other one that I tried is a much older cable. I've had it for years. And this one I just got recently. So I think it's got an upgraded HDMI spec. Also, I might need to update the firmware on this particular monitor, which could also be a problem, because this monitor is also one of my older monitors. And so it's entirely possible that this monitor does not have, like, maybe there's some firmware in the newer ones that makes them work. And that doesn't seem to be doing anything, which isn't super promising. Let's get this cable sorted out before, trying not to, like, you know when you work on a project and you keep pulling stuff out and then you throw the stuff that you're pulling out all over the place, and before you know it, you've like wrecked your space? I'm attempting to get better at not doing that. And so that's not showing up, and I wonder, okay, so the next thing to test is to get one of the newer monitors and see if that shows it. So I'm going to grab one of those, which are out here. And where are they? You got stuffed into which box? This one over here. So here it is. No, that's an old one. Where's the new ones? Here's the new one. Okay. And so this is, these are both Atomos Ninjas, and they are both theoretically the same, but this one is brand new, like within the last couple of months, and this one is older. And so if there has been any like firmware changes, which is highly likely considering just the pace of all of this stuff, and I haven't made any changes or updates to these in quite a while, then the hope here is that this one's going to get picked up as a monitor because it's got newer software which lets it act as a driver. I'm not sure if that's not working or if there's something happening over. Are you going to hold still? Don't you move. Okay. Still nothing showing up here, which is odd. So I would expect no input signal detected, yeah. But that is the in. And really, even if this wasn't plugged in, this one should be being detected as an external monitor. So I'm doing something wrong here. Let's see, what are you? You go to, that's the road. Okay, so we don't want to unplug that one. You're going to go back in and hopefully just fire right up. That made absolutely no changes. No difference whatsoever. Dang it. Well, I wonder why that's not working. Because this is a Thunderbolt cable running into a Thunderbolt port. We know this works because I've done it on other computers. Literally done it on this computer, in fact. That has me, you know what I might need to do, and I'm not going to do it on stream. I might need to power cycle this thing because it's been running uninterrupted for quite a while now and probably needs some kind of an update. Or honestly, just to clear things out. I don't know if these, I should check. I don't know if the CalDigit TS5 Plus has some kind of internal memory, but like, you know how a Wi-Fi router has internal memory and they always have little memory leaks. And that's why you have to power cycle your router every once in a while. Mike? I thought it was lagging. But like your Wi-Fi router has internal memory and it's not designed very well, and so it leaks, which means you have to power cycle your router to get it to function again. I'm wondering if the CalDigit has a similar issue where maybe it's got some got like occasionally if you're running a ton of stuff through it, which this one I've got almost maxed out in terms of everything running into it. I'm wondering if maybe it needs to be power cycled just to like get it to repick everything up. I can't do that without losing a bunch of peripherals that would be bad to lose right now, like the mic. So I think I'm not going to do that. But, you know. What's up, True? Happy late birthday. Hardware version of the web dev series would be super fun. That would be a great idea. It's like I've been wanting to do that, honestly. I feel like there would be so many cool ways that we could make that work with, especially if we got into like the Arduino or Raspberry Pi space. Like, oh my God. If you want to start that conversation, like we should do it. It would be so much fun. We had Leon Noel on, and he did like a VS Code extension that was hooked up to hardware so that if you like yelled at your computer, it would trigger I think he had it set up so that the AI agent would look at your code and figure out what was wrong, which was super fun. Oh, cool. That's awesome. Yeah, I think for anybody who's not familiar, True is like such a creative person. Does a ton of stuff on Instagram that's like just clever builds. Like has built a digital camera from component parts. Has built a bunch of really fun, like those apps that are they're like unusual inputs or like especially frustrating inputs. True has kind of made an art form out of that, has a ton of good pieces that are in that line. But yeah, there's a million ways to play with hardware. And I feel like, yes, if I could make that happen, that would actually make me super happy, because that is a completely other thing that I've been doing, which is I have this idea that I've been pitching. Um, I want to build a game that is like an escape room, but it's all powered by tech. And so the high level pitch is I want two rooms, and the rooms will be connected by like a vent or something. Like there's not really a way to pass anything back and forth. You can't see what's in the other room, but a dev goes into each room and they'll have like kind of a very light amount of clues. They'll have to start figuring out what to do, but finishing their tasks will depend on the other person discovering clues. So for example, if you were to do something like have you have to work out how to patch an error that's like a blinking error light, right? And so you figure out how to fix whatever that thing is, and that's probably going to be a little code task. But once that fixes, in the other room, a hatch would pop open, and inside that hatch are some paper instructions that include like the available endpoints for something that you're trying to fix. So now through the vent, you can talk back and forth and explain to each other. There's this game that is played on the iPad called Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, is I think the game name. And this is where the inspiration came from, because the format of that is one person can see a bomb and everybody else can see the manual, and they have to like talk back and forth to decode the different modules to like defuse the bomb before time runs out. And I thought, how much fun would that be to expand that concept to like an escape room and make it this big hardware thing. And in order to do that, there's a bunch of hardware involved, but it's all very like hardware software combination in what I think would be a very novel and fun way. And it's the sort of thing that would be really easy once we built the game, for a certain value of easy, to then take on tour as like your conference booth, or to stand up at local meetups or something like that, so that people could, other people could play it who weren't necessarily on the show. I think that would be incredible. But yeah, I think I mean, it's not a joke. But okay, I have like 100 million things that I have to do today. I'm meeting an HVAC person for a bid on this building in like 40 minutes. And I have to respond to, I just saw as I was streaming today, which is great, I got recommendations for like new general contractors, new architect, and some other folks that I've been trying to get names of. So very exciting, but also means I now have to make 100 million phone calls. So, good news, bad news, right? It's all bittersweet. Agreed. It was great to catch up. I was so sad I didn't get a chance to come out to your birthday. When we catch up, I will talk to you about what I was doing instead, which was probably both less fun and more stressful, but I think hopefully worth it. I hope you had a blast, and thank you all so much for hanging out. We have a stream coming up this week on Thursday that is going to be a deep dive into WASM. And so WASM is one of those things that we hear about a lot. You don't see a lot of practical applications unless you're one of the people doing those practical applications. As I am not one of those people, I'm very excited to dig into it and just see how it's evolved since the last time we talked about WASM on the show, which I believe was, God, it might have been more than a year ago, right? So I expect that things have probably shifted quite a bit. I am always blown away by how much you can do with just web tech now. And I think WASM is one of those spaces where truly some mind-boggling stuff is possible. So very excited to do that show. And we're also, we've got more Web Dev Challenge going. We've got a hackathon going for the Web Dev Challenge right now. If you want to build a playful app, I highly encourage you to do it. Like, do it, submit an app. We're going to do recordings. Those recordings are going to go up on the Code TV site. We've got swag in the Code TV store that we're giving away to people who participate. Like, very, very much want people to do this. It's a good chance to do something fun, to have an excuse to work on something on a deadline. If you've been looking for ways to partner up with your friends, we definitely allow people to work in teams. So, grab a partner or don't. Come up with something fun to build. Time box it, make it a thing you do in an afternoon or an evening, and have a little fun. So pad out your portfolio, learn something new. We, we're gonna have a good week. Things are gonna be great. I'm gonna solve all these building problems that I have. You are gonna, whatever your big gnarly task is that's weighing you down, you're gonna work that out too. I believe in you. We will talk soon, y'all. Have a great week.